How better go, how better go there, how better go there, how better go where, how better go here, how better now, how better go.
Right of redemption. Welcome back. Now, sometimes you're given a competitive advantage and you don't know you were given a gift. This is really a gift. Once you learn how to do this, you can make money buying, you can make money selling. This always works. Today's episode is about right of redemption. So in this episode, I'm going to reveal and give you a competitive advantage. So those that learn how to do this and use this system, they're always going to make money. You're going to get either paid on the property or the property owner that went into default is going to redeem. And when they do, you're going to make a high rate of return. So if we're going to talk about Georgia, a right of redemption, they're going to have to pay a penalty of 20%. So in this episode, I'm going to reveal a case history of a student that started out with a very small amount of money, but he generated from that small amount of money a fortune in doing these right of redemption properties, as you're going to see. So I'm going to talk a little bit about penalty states. I'm going to talk a lot about right of redemption. So today I'm going to talk about Georgia, and that state mandates that property owners must be able to redeem their property. So when they have a tax defaulted auction.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get her going here. Start me off. Where to bid to go? How about $1,000? Open it up.
Where the property owner has 1 year to come back and redeem the property. When they come back to redeem the property, they're going to have to pay the auction buyer 20% penalty. In other words, the auction buyer is going to have to give them back the deed to the property, and the auction buyer is now going to make a 20% return on what they bid. Now, it's important to understand that this is a penalty state and it's not an interest rate. So that means that this is not going to be 20% amortized over a period of time. It's going to be paid immediately. So if the property was only outstanding, in other words, that you bought the property today and it was only 20 days before they came in, they'd still have to pay you a 20% penalty. If they come in 150 days, they're still going to pay you a 20% penalty. They come in 360 days, they have to pay you a 20% penalty. So simply stated, in Georgia, when an investor purchases a property, you're purchasing a redeemable deed. That means the property owner can come back and redeem the property. So that means you'll have to surrender the redeemable deed. However, you surrender the deed back to the owner, you receive a 20% rate of return. And that's the original capital that you invested plus 20% penalty, not an amortized rate. As I said, we'll talk more about that. So what I'm talking about in all these fancy words we're saying is that if you raise your hand at the auction and you buy an auction property in Georgia, they have a redeemable deed that they're selling you, and that auction means that the property owner can come back and redeem it. In the first year, it's 20%. In the second year, it's 30%. In the third year, it's 40%. And in the fourth year, it's 50%. So that property owner can redeem their property. If you don't foreclose on it, they can come back and redeem it, but they're going to have to pay you a very high penalty. So I've taught dozens of investors how to do this. And so anybody can do it, but I've had people, and I'm going to demonstrate it to you in just a minute, that have bought up to 100 properties this way. They have bought the property because the people did not come back in and redeem it. All right, so I'm Ted Thomas. I've been practicing this investment for well over 30 years. I'm also an author, I'm a guide, but folks, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a real estate broker, and I'm not giving you legal advice. I can't give you legal advice. You need to get an attorney to do that. So I'm just trying to give you the foundational material so that you get it. But this is a redeemable state when we're talking about Georgia. I'll be right back with some more details. Okay, now nationwide, there's over 3,000 counties in the United States. All of those counties will sell tax defaulted property. All right, they're all separate jurisdictions. That means they can have their own rules. The rules are actually made by the state legislature. They push the rules down to the county board of supervisors, but they can have their own rules. So you need to know the rules for every auction. All right, now when were they formulated? Well, these rules, in the case of some of the counties, were formed way back when they first became a state, back in the 1700s. Other ones didn't become states until the year 1900. So all during that time, the rules can be different. That means you need to know the different rules in different states and in different counties. They're always on the county website. The statutes are all listed. So they're not trying to hide anything. It's just you just have to do your homework. So all states require property owners to pay property taxes. In some cases, they even have tax lien certificates, which we're not going to talk about today. All right, all property owners do not redeem their property. So that means in a place like Georgia, where there's 159 counties, every single county can have an auction every month if they want. But when they do have the auctions, all right, they'll have the auction. When you purchase a property, you're purchasing a redeemable deed. That means the property owner can come back and redeem that property. Now, in the first year, they're going to have to pay you a 20% penalty. They're going to have to give you that money when you give them back their deed. They're also going to give you back all the money you paid at the auction. Now, at the end of the first year, if they have not redeemed, well, then you can go ahead and foreclose on the property, and that'll just move them off the property completely. So keep in mind, I didn't create the rules. The legislature created the rules. They pushed it down to the Board of Supervisors, and they end up with the treasurer and the tax collector enforcing those rules. Now, the educated buyer is the one that makes all the money at this auction. So the people that understand this is almost a gift to you to get involved with the redeemable deeds. Why? Because the redeemable deeds are going to pay so much. For example, Texas also has redeemable deed. Guess what? It's up to 25%. So you can earn 25% in a matter of 10 days, even 2 weeks' time. You can make that much money if you bought at a state where they sell a redeemable deed, and the property owner comes forward, pays you whatever you paid, plus the penalty for the redeemable deed. So Georgia has a legislature. They've mandated that all properties must pay property tax. All right, so if they don't pay property tax, the state's going to go about collecting that. So they'll have the Board of Supervisors, they'll have the treasurer levy the tax. If people don't pay their tax, they're going to confiscate the property, and they're going to sell it at a public auction. Anybody can buy one of these properties at a public auction.
How better go there? How better go there? How better go where? How better go here? How better now? How better go?
They're open to the public. The only thing that you need is money to pay for the property when you're there. All right, so these auctions usually start at very close to the back taxes. So the property will have assessed value, could be, say, $100,000 assessed value. However, the treasurer and tax collector might be selling this property at much lower than that, because what they're trying to do is they're just trying to collect the back taxes. So this property could sell for 10 or 20 or 30 cents on the dollar. And when they do that, that's going to be a bargain price where you're going to get started in the tax defaulted business. You see those little white circles? That's how many auctions are taking place within that state in the next 90 days. This calendar updates every single day. I'm here today to show you how to make money. To do that, I'm going to show you briefly that there are thousands of tax defaulted real estate properties across the 3,000 plus counties in the United States. This is quite interesting. You're looking at the Ted Thomas Magic Interactive Map and Auction Calendar. It changes every day. Now, I created the calendar and the map so I would know how many auctions are taking place every day in the United States. Now I can show the little guy how to make money. Most importantly, I created this system so I could have an auction list for each auction 24/7. All right, so anyone can buy at the auction. It's a public auction, and it'll be more than likely held on the courthouse steps or in a big auction hall somewhere on the county property. All right, now auction properties are all assessed by the tax collector, but they're sold by the treasurer. All right, and when they sold by the treasurer is just trying to get the back taxes so they can use that back tax money to run the government. So if they can sell property at these auctions, they could sell them for 10, 20, or 30 cents on the dollar. That doesn't mean because they start at 10 or 20 cents that they're going to sell for that. So if a property has a high value, well, people are going to bid it up. All right, so when they bid it up, if you want to win the auction, you're going to have to bid up with them. All right, so highest bidder wins at the tax auction. Highest bidder wins the property. All right, now, when they sell that property, they're going to sell the property and they're going to give you a deed. It's a redeemable deed. Now, in most counties, they're either going to issue a sheriff's deed, a commissioner's deed. There could be a quitclaim deed. In all cases, when they issue a deed, all right, that means the county has no responsibility for condition and has no responsibility for any defects in the title. So you want to keep that in mind. That's up to you to do your own due diligence on these properties. So the auction sale in Georgia is for a redeemable deed. So when you buy that redeemable deed, you hold it. Anytime in that first year, if the property owner wants to come forward, they have to pay you whatever you paid plus a 20% penalty, and then you have to give them back the deed. They get their property back. So you don't want to do a lot of fix-up on these properties in that first year. You want to just sit and wait, because that property owner can come forward. It's a redeemable deed. Now, after the first year, you can go ahead and exercise your rights and foreclose. So Georgia is a little different than other states. Like Florida, they don't have redeemable deeds. And in California, they don't have redeemable deeds. What they're going to do is they're going to sell you the deed to the property, and they're going to give you a commissioner's deed or a sheriff's deed or a quitclaim deed. That's what you're going to get. It's up to you to have already checked the condition of the property, and it's up to you to understand if there's any defects in the title that you're going to have to take care of it. All right, so let's do a quick review on Georgia, and then we'll button this up. Georgia allows a level of protection that's very high for the property owner. The level of protection is this. Number one, they're going to auction the property to the highest bidder. However, when they sell the property, they're selling it on a redeemable deed. That means that property owner has time to come back and redeem it. If they do redeem it, they have to come forward and pay you whatever you paid plus a 20% penalty. In the second year, it's a 30% penalty. In the third year, it's a 40% penalty. And in the fourth year, it's going to be a 50% penalty. Okay, now I want to show you one example before I finish. So after completing my training, this particular student who did very well, what he did is he purchased 4.1 acres. So basically it's a 4-acre residential lot. And as you can see, it's covered with trees. All right, so it's residential, but they can go in and cut the trees down and do whatever they want with the property. He bought it at the auction for $6,000, but it had a tax assessed value of $30,000. So now this property is bought in Georgia, so that means a redeemable deed. So anytime during that first year, that property owner can come forward and they can pay the $6,000, or in this case $6,600, and get their property back. All they have to do is pay the $6,600 plus a 20% penalty. Well, the property owner never came forward, and the auction bidder went ahead and foreclosed on the property. All right, when they finally foreclosed on the property, well, they owned the property. A short time later, they sold the property for $30,000. Now think about that. They invested $6,000, and a short time later, they sold it, and they got $30,000. Would that be the kind of profit you'd like to make? Well, definitely you want to make those kinds of profit, because it make a huge difference in your lifestyle. Okay, well, it's certainly true that anyone that has some ambition can learn how to do this. Some people make a small fortune doing this because there's so many tax defaulted auctions. There's going to be over 5,000 auctions this year. Anybody can go to those auctions. Okay, with the right amount of guidance, one person can turn this into a business they can do from home, where you can generate multiples of $100,000 a year in profits. Why? Because there's so many auctions, over 5,000 nationwide. Ultimately, buyers succeed because they're buying right at the auction. You're buying low, 10, 20 cents on the dollar, and then you can sell into the marketplace. Now, who are you going to sell it to? I'm not going to have time to talk about that, but I will tell you this. Fixer-upper people want these properties. Renovators want these properties. Even builders want these properties. So there's a big market. You just have to learn how to sell it. Now, people that learn how to sell, how do they do it? They're going to do it on eBay. They're going to do it on the multiple listing. They're going to use Trulia. They're going to use Zillow. They're going to use Craigslist. They're going to use as many electronic sites as possible to sell the property. The key is get the property sold. All right, let me close this video by telling you there's a couple of things that you need to be careful of. One, you don't want to buy a property unless you've seen it. Number two, you want to know what your exit strategy is. For those of you that would like to have an auction list, a sample, just go below me and you can get an auction list. Don't forget, request your free auction list right below me.